Morning. I wanted to talk about something before it all gets lost in the business of day to day. I was AFK last week for a week at a retreat called Path of Love, and it's probably the most important thing I've ever done in my life. It's kind of hard to explain because if you are on one side of it, then this will just all sound like nonsense, and I think you might find it difficult to relate to. And if you're on the other side, you might feel like this is so obvious, I can't believe you'd even bother making a video about this. But the retreat was about love and longing and accessing your whole heart, your whole body, being, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the word soul, but other people use that word. And accepting all of the emotions and really feeling connected throughout your body, not just in your mind, but your gut, your heart, all of those different places where tensions and emotions seem to come from. And one of the things I came away with was that it's so important to do this, to have that ability to come back to yourself, just to come home to yourself and feel like I'm at peace, this is connected, because we have in our brains a lot of thoughts, a lot of busy thoughts, a lot of monkey mind stuff, but also part of that is like this judge, or it's called a superego, and this is the part of your mind that judges. It says, this is good, that's bad, and its origin is your childhood. It is the way that your mind learns to keep you safe, to protect yourself, but also to attract the love of particularly of your parents. And so a lot of this work that I did was about being able to recognize that judge and all the things that he says, all the ways that they impact or control my life. And so I came away with this very clear understanding that your heart is what allows your mind to be able to recognize that superego, that judge, and to be able to evaluate whether what it's saying is still helpful and relevant. I mean, sometimes things are dangerous and stupid to do, or whether it's out of date and actually you should get up and dance or sing and just the 1,000 different judgments that get overlaid onto our experiences every day. And this brought me to my work and helped me think about it differently. I've always felt very grateful for my role here. It's clear to me that role has evolved from like being the crypto guy that's trying to like bring crypto to Web 2. I feel like the words I had before were, it's about being able to use technology humanely, like to create a more humane future. So I guess like maybe an ethical technologist or something like that. Anyway, what this personal work did was to help me understand like the context that we live in today a lot better. So Adam Curtis, who's this incredible filmmaker, did this series called Century of the Self, which is around how the 20th century was very much about people waking up to themselves as individuals. It was the rise of psychology and psychiatry and marketing and all of the things associated with people identifying themselves as having their own rights, as being their own agents in the world. And my theory is that we've come into the 21st century as the century of the super self. The internet has connected us all. It hasn't made us into one. We're still very much selves. But together we're also a super self. The internet has changed. I've written before about this idea that the internet has changed who we are as a species, but I was thinking about it more individually. Like, we now have infinite memory and instant communications and, you know, access to collective intelligence and all of this kind of stuff. But there's also the level that like what does that create? And you can think of it a little bit like an ant or wasp or bee colony. You know, we're like now a big social superorganism, but it's different also, because anyway, I won't go down that zoological rabbit hole, but so let's say that we are now in the century of the super self. A lot of it, what's going on in the world, is us trying to figure out what that means. But there's also this idea that within yourself, you have this super ego. And I think within this super self, we now have this hyper ego that is running absolutely rampant. It's the algorithms that determine what is good or not, or what's going to provoke the reaction in the self, in the collective super self. And so I now feel like that idea of using technology to build a better future is still totally true, but that part of this is to figure out how to bring our whole selves, our whole super self, to bear against the hyperego. I don't have any answers to that yet. think there's probably something about helping every self to connect fully, for each individual to be able to bring their whole self. There's a lot of work to be done there anyway. And then there's also going to be so that's, that's work that people have been doing for centuries, monks and all sorts of different religious and spiritual practices. But what's new is being able to do that at a global scale, being able to connect our whole selves up into this super self as a defense against, or a balance too, right? It's not the judge and the superego aren't bad, they should be welcomed, they just need to be balanced by our whole selves. And so how do we do that? How do we make our digital realm humane? How do we bring our whole connected selves up and allow that to be the core of our online experiences? I don't know if this makes sense to anyone or if anyone cares, but for me, thinking about our current experience of the internet as this out of control hyperego that is unanchored by like a deep whole collective self, just made a lot of sense, and it made my personal mission feel richer and more true. So I wanted to get this out of my head before I get back into the Slack and the email and the everything else. And I hope it makes sense to you too. And if anyone has any ideas on how we fix this, let me know.